Yeah, it's doing very well.
Used to be tuberculosis. I'm assuming he's coming in that door over there.
I would say so.
That door. Heads up, Mark. He's gone.
I'm ready. Let's do this. I mean, just an aside, so I called for the press conference assuming this was the plan. I didn't realize it was going to be an event. Turns out when we I do the dugout scrums type of thing. It's kind of informal, like an hour before people find out. So I kind of tweeted out assuming people knew, and so it may not be as big as an event as people were hoping for, but we'll see. Okay.
On that note, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone. And with that, we'll begin with Steve Gelbs.
Steve, just to start off in general, what are your thoughts on where the team is currently?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's been incredibly frustrating. Listen, I watch every game. I see what's going on. I mean, if you ask me, would I have expected us to be in this position at the beginning of the season, the answer is no. But here we are, and, hopefully we can right the ship. And listen, we have quality players. For some reason or another, they're not gelling. When we pitch well, we don't hit. When we hit, we don't pitch well. It's kind of weird. I mean, it's actually very strange to me. And I don't know if the players are anxious. I don't know if they're pressing. I mean, I assume that that's a little bit of that. We see a lot of mental errors, that what I call enforced errors. Obviously we can clean that up. We've lost games because of it, and there's nobody to blame, and it's really across the whole team. And but we played great last night. That was a crisp game, probably one of the best games we've played all year. And so we know it's possible, right? We know we're capable of doing it, and now we got to string it together. And the problem is, we're really at close to half the season. And so we don't have as much luxury of time as we have before. We still have time. I mean, I read something today that said there was one team every year that came from 8.5 back in the last 4 years to make the wild card. Okay, and so, obviously we came in with higher hopes and, making the last wild card or whatever, but that's where we are, and so the season's not over. I'm preparing my management team for all possibilities. If we don't get better, we have decisions to make at the trade deadline, and that's not my preferred end result. But I'm preparing all contingencies, and we'll see where it goes. It's on the players, right? I mean, they're veterans; they've been there before. I think they're, these are, players that have done it, and we'll see if they can get their act together and string together some wins. I can't pitch and I can't hit. Okay, so that's the way it goes, and we're hoping for the best.
Steve, what's your current confidence level in that management group, be it Buck Showalter, field manager, or Billy Epler?
Listen, I mean, I'm a patient guy, okay? Now everybody wants, a headline. Everybody says, fire this person, fire that person. But I don't see that as a way to operate. If you want to attract good people to this organization, the worst thing you can do is be impulsive, okay? And win the headline for the day, and not, overall, over time, attract, you're not going to attract the best talent, because they're not going to want to work for somebody who has a short fuse. And listen, I know fans that, they want something to happen. I get it. But sometimes you can't do it, because you have long-term objectives. And that's the way it is. Listen, I've been clear from day one that I'm still looking for a president of baseball ops. Billy knows. I've had that conversation with him. He's supportive. My view is this is a very complex job, and there's a lot to do, and it's a lot on one person. And so, I mean, obviously we have people under Billy, but from a leadership standpoint, and so, that's still out there. And we'll see. At some point, we will fill that position, and my view is, Billy will be part of that. I think I've enhanced, at that point, I've enhanced the management team, and that's the goal. And so I've been very patient. You know, the biggest mistake you can make is go hire somebody and set the organization back 5 years, 10 years. And so, you know, I've been waiting, and at some point, you know, we'll hire somebody.
Tony on the right.
Steve, over to your right. Over here.
Where? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
You spent a lot of money this past offseason.
Yeah.
To what extent, if at all, given everything that's transpired, do you regret any of that?
You know, I mean, listen. In retrospect, would you, if you're going to have, let's assume this turns out to be a poor season. Yeah, in retrospect, you'd like to spend less, right? But you don't have that luxury when you're trying to put together a team, and that's the decision we made. Free agency is really expensive. Okay, if you want to field a good team from free agency, that's what it costs. If you want to field, you know, fill all the positions with hopefully quality players, okay? And sometimes you can get it right, and sometimes, you know, things go wrong, okay? I mean, it's a tough place to build a team, which is why I keep saying, and the goal here is to build up the farm system, because ultimately that gives you a lot more options. I mean, when we look at our pitching today, you know, we had to go out in free agency and get pitchers over the last couple of years. We haven't really developed that many pitchers, which is actually pretty shocking. I mean, we're certainly capable of doing it. You know, we may not have had the right infrastructure in place. Like, you know, we just opened up our pitching lab. Well, guess what? Other teams had pitching labs 6, 7, 8 years ago. And so we're behind. And so, you know, the goal is to provide all the resources, all the infrastructure that makes us competitive with other teams. And then it's upon us to, you know, take those tools and use them and you know, and either pick good players and or make them better. And that's the goal, but that takes time. And so in the what else are you going to do? If you don't have them in the system, at least we have the luxury of going out and spending the money and get players. You know, fortunately, you know, this year has been, you know, not what I'd hoped it to be. But I'll say it again, the year's not over. And listen, there are little green shoots. Max is pitching better. Peterson, you know, obviously tough year, pitched yesterday and looked like he pitched a lot better. He did good work down in the farm and hopefully fixed what he needed fixing. And so, you know, there are reasons. Quintana comes back next week. So all is not lost yet, you know, but it's getting late.
As a follow-up, you know, given that the farm system's not yet where you want it, to what extent do you view in the short term, whether it's trade deadline or even this upcoming offseason, do you consider continuing to spend in that way a strategy that you would like to pursue?
Listen, I've made those decisions. You know, that I'll worry about the off season. You know, ultimately, I think we'd like to get the payroll down because the farm system is developing players. If we can't, then it's on us. You know, what my decisions are in the future, I haven't really thought enough about yet.
Dave in the right.
Hey, Steve, right behind Tony. Good. I know you've spoken in the past about wanting to hire a president when Sandy had moved on. Mm-hmm. I don't remember specifically talking about a president of baseball operations before for that.
You know, I think I've been fairly.
But I mean, that is you.
I mean, you know, I've been looking. You know, right? I mean, and listen, if you want to hire great talent, they just don't show up. And so, you know, I've been patient because I do not want to make a mistake. And so I can't tell you if it's going to be this year. I don't know. Okay. Is it going to be next year? I don't know. Okay. But at some point, that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I was just curious on that question because you obviously see somebody else to help with the baseball decisions clearly by wanting to pursue somebody like that, which would operate over Billy.
I totally missed that. What are you saying?
No, by a president of baseball operations, you know, you would bring in somebody else above Billy to make baseball decisions. That's what I was just curious about.
That's what a president of baseball ops does.
Right. Okay. So, all right. Yeah. I just want to be clear on that.
Okay. You know, but listen, in the end, these are titles. Okay. You know, these are going to be working relationships. I suppose the responsibilities will be divvied up.
Andy on the far left.
Steve, so it's clear you're looking for a president/CEO and a president of baseball,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, other than that, I'm in good shape.
Right. Thanks.
One day, you never know.
Bruce in the front.
Steve, when you took over, you said the time frame of winning a championship was 3 to 5
I keep
years.
saying, I wish I.
This is
keep
year
throwing that up
3.
to me, you know.
This is year 3. Is that
Yeah.
goal still realistic?
Listen, it's always possible, right? I mean, you never know, right? I mean, once you if you can get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Winning a World Series is really hard. I mean, 29 teams lose, 1 team wins, and but you know, the goal is to put yourself in position for good things to happen. I mean, that's the goal, okay? And I've been bridging that as our farm system, as we rejigger our farm system. I mean, I came in, I mean, no pitching, a lot of the tools weren't there, and you know, these things take time. To develop talent takes time. I mean, I wish it was faster. I'm used to it in my own hedge fund, and you know, analysts that come in as junior analysts in my hedge fund sometimes take 6-7 years before they become PMs, portfolio managers. And developing talent's hard. You know, it's not easy. We're all competing for the best talent, so you know, it requires a little patience, and then my willingness to spend to bridge it.
What does Steve Cohen, the owner, say to Steve Cohen, the fan, right now?
Sorry about it. We're working hard. You know, I understand the disappointment and frustration. You know, that's the beauty. We have passionate fans. You're right. I mean, they live this. Okay. I mean, listen, I'm living this. Okay. I mean, I watch every game. You know, the finishes of the games this year are pretty wild. I describe it as almost like a dog track where the dogs are trying to chase the rabbit, and they get up to the rabbit and they somehow never win. Okay. But you know, that's what's happened. It doesn't mean it's going to you know, continue in the future. We have pretty good talent, you know, but it's on them. You know, they're not performing up to the level that they themselves would have expected. You know, for a multitude of reasons, you know, individual issues. But you know, they wanted more. They wanted as much as anybody else. And you know, they're just going to have to get their act together. They're going to have to act like a team. They're going to have to support each other, right? This is not an easy task. It's going to require real commitment.
Disha on the far left.
Hey, Steve. Would a 4th place finish and not making the playoffs bring along major changes at the end of the season?
I mean, it's not 5th place, right? But no, listen, 4th place is not the goal, okay? And anytime you end up in 4th place, to sit and do nothing is probably not a great place to be, okay? So, you know, getting into specifics, I don't know what the answers are. You know, we'll figure out what went wrong, and then figure out how to fix it.
So just to be clear, you haven't thought about that yet, being 16.5 games back in the division and 8.5 back in the wild
We're
card.
not playing well. I don't care if we're 16.5 or 14.5 or 18.5. It's terrible. Okay, that's not what I expected.
Tim in the middle.
You mentioned not wanting to act impulsively. Sorry, right here. Not wanting to act impulsively or fire somebody for the sake of firing somebody. Can you say definitively that Billy and Buck will remain in their jobs through the season?
Absolutely.
And separately, last week with the Escobar trade, for example, you guys paid down the salary as much as you were allowed for the sake of better prospect return.
Mm-hmm.
In the event that you go down the seller path leading up to the trade deadline, how extensively are you willing to do that?
I mean, I already consider the money spent. So if I can find ways to, if in that unfortunate circumstance, if I can find ways to improve our farm system, and that's the path we take, I'm willing to do it.
Is that in the case of any player you may trade?
You know, listen, each situation is dependent on, you know, the particular player and the opportunities on the other side, what we might get. Okay, so it's hard to say, but I'm open to all ideas.
Hannah on the left.
Over here. You talked about preparing for the contingencies in which you would sort of be selling at the deadline, or I guess conceding that this season was not going to end in a postseason run in
My
that.
preference, okay?
Well, this doesn't seem to be the preference either.
What's that?
This current situation, I assume, is already not your preference.
Listen, this is where we are, right? We got ourselves in this mess. Now, how are we going to get out?
If you were to pursue that, some sort of retooling, what kind of timeline do you think that would put the team on? Like, how far back would you be sort of resetting things?
You know, that's a very general question. It's really hard to know. It really depends. I mean, obviously, you want to stay competitive. You still want to take advantage of opportunities. You know, once again, it's a case-by-case situation. You know, I haven't really developed my thinking on that. You know, if it turns out we don't improve, and I'm looking at 24, you know, with let's say, you know, with a similar team, 1 year older for a veteran team, probably not a great place to be. Okay, I mean, it could get better, but you know, it may not. And so, you know, we have to make those judgments. You know, we have to make honest, truthful judgments. There are no guarantees we're going to get it right, and but you know, we're thinking about it every day, and like I said, my druthers would be that we're not faced with that situation.
How much would you be prepared to add at the deadline if you were, say, in a position like you are now? Or a little bit better?
If I'm in this position, I'm not adding, okay? I mean, I think that would be pretty silly, okay? I mean, you know, I would probably do very little.
Abby on the right.
What do you hope a president of baseball operations brings to the organization, and are you looking for somebody with specific experience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want a rookie doing this, okay? I mean, you know, we've got a solid infrastructure in place, solid management. So we want to bring in somebody that's complementary. Someone, you know, I want someone that can come into this organization and hit the ground running and not create problems, right? Conflicts. And so, you know, like I said, I'm taking my time. You know, hopefully I'll find the right person. And if I don't find the right person this year, I'll, you know, wait.
Lindsay on the left.
Steve, over here.
Yeah.
Who do you feel is responsible for your team's struggles this season?
Well, you know, there's plenty of blame to go around, right? I mean, I'll take responsibility, right? I'm the owner. And so, yeah, listen, ultimately, for some reason, we're not as crisp as we were last year. You know, we had a lot of players perform really well last year, and this year they're not performing quite as well. What the reason is, I don't know. It's a little bit above my pay grade. Okay, it's not my forte. You know, it doesn't mean it has to last all season, but you know, the reality is the reality. Players know it, management knows it, I know it, and you know, hope is not a strategy, right? So this is what we're faced. We don't have a ton of options, right? I mean, you know, until we figure out where we are. There's still a lot of baseball to be played, all the euphemisms. And, but, you know, I'm a realist, you know, like it's June 28th. The trade deadline's August 1st. A little bit more than a month. We got to get going.
Do you have a message to your players about their performance?
Listen, I believe in these guys, okay? I mean, I was talking to Jeff McNeil today. Called him up just to see how he was doing. I know he's frustrated, and, you know, he feels he's close. Okay, well, you know, David Peterson, he made changes. Max Scherzer, he's pitching better. You know, Jose Quintana coming back. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. You know, we have some relief pitchers that are almost healthy. So you can make a case that things are about to turn. But, you know, you can make it, you know, but who knows, right? I mean, it's really hard to predict the future. Have you noticed that? Really hard. So I'm hopeful. And I think there's reason to be hopeful, but it's on the players at this point.
Mike on the right.
Steve, if this season winds up outside the playoffs, however the path takes you there,
yep.
Would that at all make you reticent in the future from spending as you have so far, or is that not even an option in your mind? You'll just take it as it comes?
Listen, I mean, you know, pitching's really expensive. I think that's the reason why we're spending as much as we are. Position players, we have young players coming up. I think that's going to, over time, help from a payroll perspective. And listen, I mean, I don't think it's sustainable in a long term. I mean, just losing the type of money that I'm losing. I mean, it's a lot to ask, okay? And frankly, we'll figure that out as we go, but I certainly have the wherewithal to do it, and it's just a question of how long.
Steve's got time for a couple more before he heads into another meeting. Tim?
When you talk about not firing, so as not being impulsive now, so as to attract top talent, how much of that perspective has been informed by your attempts to hire a president of baseball ops in past off seasons?
Not easy, right? I mean, in my business, there are ways to hire people a lot easier than it is in baseball. I'm following the rules, and the type of person I want doesn't grow on trees. Okay, so I have to be patient, and like I said, the worst thing I can do is go hire somebody in that role that I'm settling on. Okay, and listen, I was lucky enough to find Billy 2 years ago. I mean, it was really difficult to go find anybody to run this team, which is kind of remarkable. It's a New York team, but because of the nature of trying to find people in baseball, it's not easy.
Do you have a clearer picture now of why it was so difficult then and why it might be easier this offseason?
It's it's a question of do people at some point someone's going to come available. I mean it's not going to continue this way forever, okay? And so at the same time we're making massive improvements that the fans do not see in the people we're hiring, the coaches, the people in the farm system. I had a great conversation with our head of pitching in the minor leagues. I'm impressed by him. We're bringing those. I mean, I just had a presentation today on the stuff we're doing with technology in the farm system. We're investing, and when you invest in your business, it should pay dividends.
Anthony on the left.
Steve, how much money are you losing?
Well, bigger than a breadbasket, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you after the thing. Okay? No,
Last one. June.
Is trading Justin Verlander or Max Scherzer something you would consider if the team's in the same place at the deadline?
These are great pitchers, and we brought them in for a reason, and so I don't want to broach that topic. I haven't gotten that far yet.
This is the oldest roster in baseball.
Plus they have contracts, by the way. Okay, no offense, but
Thank you very much, Steve.
Yep. Okay, good seeing everybody.
Buck Showalter will be in the press conference room very shortly. As we transition the room, we have brought our American vet dog, Seaver, to some of you, so everyone can meet him. Yeah, exactly. And we'll reconfigure the room and bring Buck in shortly.